Hey guys, it's Joseph.
And Tasha from One Big Happy Life. In this video, we are going to be reflecting on our 20s and talking about things that we regret from that period in our lives.
Now that Tasha and I are in our 30s, we've had some time to look back a little bit on our 20s. And I mean, it was a wonderful time, and things move really, really fast. There's a lot going on. It's hectic because it's the first time that you're typically out of the house on your own and trying to run your own little household. Lots of times you're going to school, getting your first job. And so there are things that when you look back on it, you definitely would have done differently.
Yeah, and Joseph and I, obviously, I had a pretty non-traditional 20s experience because throughout my entire 20s, I had a child, and for most of my 20s, I was also married. So it was a little different for me, but you know, I'm still able to reflect back on it and just think about some things that I would do differently. And so these are in no particular order. I think we're gonna alternate. So one of the things that I wish that I had done differently was to report sexual harassment that I experienced when I was in the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18, and you know, that was me leaving my house for the first time, and I had pretty overprotective parents and stuff. And so here I am, 18 years old, and it was super trusting, and my boss's boss started to get really inappropriate. Like, he would come in and give me shoulder massages and try to get me to allow him to take me places, and creepy places too, like an amusement park, saying like, oh, well, don't you like amusement parks? I could take you to one. And it's like, okay, gross old man, And so I was and he's probably old enough to be my dad, or almost old enough to be my dad, in his 40s at that time, and I'm like 18. And so I told my boss about it because I was so uncomfortable. And my boss, now I say boss, but really I'm in the military, so I'm enlisted. They're all enlisted too, but they're higher level enlisted. So my boss is a gunnery sergeant, and this guy is a master gunnery sergeant, my boss's boss. And so I told my boss is upset about it and talks to the guy, but at the end of the day, the guy is his boss. So the guy gets angry at my boss and gets angry at me and starts to treat me poorly. And it got really bad because in the military, they can control how much whether you even get to speak, or, whether you can just suddenly have to do push-ups or something like that. They could basically control your entire life. And what I should have done was use a process called request mass, where you bring it up the chain of command above the people who are above you. And it may not have amounted to anything because it's not like the military is the greatest at stomping out sexual harassment. And honestly, a lot of places, even in, the not in the military, a lot of industries are just where sexual harassment is way too rampant, and I think the military is just like that. But I wish that I had had my Me Too moment back then when I was 18 instead of just letting it go.
All of my things seem completely trivial to most of Tasha's experiences. I mean, it's like she's had, I just don't even know how to put it, but like
I've had some things
really
happen.
difficult situations from time to time, fortunately, as well as some great things. But I'll go ahead and say my first thing that I regret from my 20s is that I really worried too much about what people were going to think of what I was doing. And because of that, I made a lot of decisions where I was kind of following just this one track that just seemed like that's how I needed to do things.
Like, be specific. Tell them the specific.
Well, so the biggest thing is I got married in my 20s, and it didn't last very long. And it was because, and I had reservations before we got married, but I just kept it to myself. I'm like, no, this is how it's supposed to work. No, your 20s is the time you're still figuring it out. It's the time to say, hey, no, if this doesn't feel right, stop. This doesn't need to go any further. And I was too afraid about what my parents were going to think, what my friends were going to think, what
You mean if you backed out?
Yeah, if
right?
if I had changed it, if I backed out. And so because of that, I ended up going even further in a relationship, and that ultimately ended in divorce. And so it's like, well, we both would have been better off if I had been like, nope, not gonna happen.
See, and I had sort of a similar experience. I think we can all relate to caring too much about what other people think, because I think when I was a single teen mom, I was so worried about being a single teen mom that I'm like, oh, well, who's gonna want me, right? Now I'm like a single teen mom. And I cared so much about what other people thought that when I met my first husband, the man that went on to become my first husband, that I overlooked a lot of warning signs that I really shouldn't have, and it led me to marry him and then stay in the relationship a lot longer than I should have. But that is not one of my regrets, because at the end of the day, I still think that he is a nice person. I still, I appreciate the time that we had together, and so I don't regret it. But I can definitely relate to what Joseph said. And I can't say how my life would have turned out if I hadn't gotten married. See, Joseph wasn't married for nearly as long as I was. And I was married through law school, which was also a very difficult time. So again, I don't regret it, but I totally get the making decisions based on what other people think of you versus what you think is best for yourself.
It's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. Oh, okay. So another regret that I have, and I guess, I'll start with the more personal ones that make me really, really sad. So when I was in law school, Alexis was age 5 to age 9, sort of. And I decided to build her this heirloom quality dollhouse. It was massive and epic and was taking so much of my time. And I started on it gung-ho, but then I got really busy with law school and it kind of fell to the wayside. And I remember so many times Alexis asking me if we could work on it, and I just didn't have time. But then after law school and I started working my full-time job, well, I had time, but then she wasn't interested anymore. And so that makes me really sad that I didn't take the time to do it with her then when she wanted to do it. Now, I still did a lot of other super mom things, right? Like we always made extra special Valentines, and, I've always done a good job of decorating for Christmas and things like that. But I was just really sad. Joseph and I finished that house together without Alexis.
Fortunately, I wouldn't say that it was an entirely missed opportunity or something like that. We talked to her about it and asked her if she really wanted it, if she still wanted us to finish it. And so she said yes. And so we did, and it was actually amazing.
Yeah.
It had electricity, lights would come on, and it was an amazing dollhouse. And she did play with it, but it was probably for maybe another year. And now we still kept it around until we moved to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and then it didn't make it into the moving truck, so we sold it to another little girl. But it has it's inscribed with Alexis's name and the date and all of that. But it's just kids, they grow up so fast, and so I can't ever get that back. So that was tough. Okay, your turn.
See what I mean?
The rest of mine are easy though, so I started with the two hardest ones.
All right, I guess. I wished I had a budget. Okay, so in my 20s now, even though, I'm going to school to be an accountant, finance major, economics, it's no, home budgeting, that's not what I was into. And so
yeah, he didn't have a budget when we met. I'm like, how do you not have a budget?
That's kind of fly by the seat of my pants.
How do you know how much money? I don't even understand.
Yeah, fortunately, the case was that I just wasn't spending that much money and was making enough that everything was working out. And after when we met anyway. Before that though, I didn't have much savings. I had a little bit, But I mean, I'm going to school. I knew I was going to law school, and I had a job, and I wasn't really saving much money. Knowing that I was going to move clear across the country, that doesn't make any sense. And the way that you catch that is with a budget, and I didn't have it.
Yeah, I had to budget. Like, money was always tight. So, I mean, although not as tight, I realize now, not as tight as I thought it was back then, because I had way too much, like, padding in that budget. But, okay, so now my next regret is not following a passion sooner. So, obviously, when I had Alexis, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that I can provide for this child? And I knew I wasn't going to stay in the Marine Corps because of, gross sexual harassment guy and other things. And so I'm like, all right, well, what career is going to get me there? And I chose nursing at first and then law. And it was, yes, I thought I'd be interested in it, but also because it was going to make me a lot of money. And the things that I'm really, really passionate about, I love doing creative things. I love writing. I love, home decor and design and things like that. And I'm like, well, you can't really, it's hard to make money off of those things. So I didn't pursue them. And instead I put all of my energy into, well, I'm going to go to law school. And yes, I have had awesome, financial success and career success, but at the expense of following my passions. And it's only now that I'm doing that with YouTube and with the blog and with writing, and that I'm actually pursuing the things that I thoroughly enjoy doing in the hopes that one day I can just do that full time.
Alexis and I have been pushing her so long to write more, and
it's scary, okay? It is really scary because it's like, I've had a lot of success in a lot of other areas, and it's like, well, what if I'm not successful at this? It's fighting that sort of internal fear of failure, and then also fear of what are other people gonna think of me. Like, I still have not, just being honest, posted a YouTube video on my Facebook page because it's like, well, I'm a lawyer, and then it's like I'm making these family vlogs on YouTube, and I'm like, what are my classmates who are running for Congress gonna think of me doing family vlogs? And
I can tell you what they're gonna think. They're gonna think that it's amazing that she was able to edit a video the way that she did, and is probably going to think, you know what, she needs to be on my campaign team because I want my videos to make me look like that.
So FYI, I did post a post today actually about us we just hit 25,000 subscribers, and so I'm overcoming that, to stop caring so much about what Joseph said about what other people think, because they really don't have any impact on my day-to-day life anyway. So yeah.
Okay, next, in my 20s, I really lacked direction. Now, it might seem like, oh my gosh, well, you went to undergrad and then law school and then got a job and now you're here, but I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And that's okay in your 20s, but I didn't take the time to really, truly think about it. It took me a long time to only recently really discover what it is that I want to be doing, and how I feel about working, and how I feel about not working, and doing YouTube on the side, things like that. And so I was really lost in my 20s in that regard, and it takes effort to figure out what you want to be good at and what you are passionate about. Otherwise, you might end up just going through the motions, and you might end up okay. Fortunately, I did, but I really want to make sure everyone else that has the time focus on what truly makes you happy, what you're really interested in, because you can find work doing it.
Yeah, I guarantee you, whatever it is you want to do, there is someone out there making money, making an excellent living off of that exact passion thing, whatever it is. So you can do it too. And that it's like internalizing that and believing that you can is like the first step in making that kind of change in your life. And even if you're not in your 20s, because we're not in our 20s, we're in our 30s. We have a kid about to go to college, and we have a little baby, and we're still making those changes in our lives. So don't think that your ability to do that stops in your 20s. So those are a few of our regrets, not regrets, but I don't know, things.
Definitely things that we would do differently. And also, I think, kind of focus on.
Yeah, in our 20s.
Yeah. definitely takes time to get these things right.
But all in all, all of those things are life experiences that help us become the people that we are today, and we're super happy with where we've ended up. So it's really hard to regret those things. I'm kind of glad for them because they inform who I am today.
That's true. It's so hard to, hindsight's 2020, but if you had done it right, who knows what would have happened. So I'm certainly glad I ended up here.
I do wish I had done the dollhouse thing. I'm not even gonna lie. That one I could do differently and think my life would have still turned out the same way, except I wouldn't have had built it with Joseph. But yeah, that's it. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.